Any leadership that does not fight for your collective and individual ability to compete, which means equitable and equal representation of jobs, economics, education, housing, law, medical treatment, entertainment, religion, sex, defense, and protection, as stated by your cries, is a leadership that will lead you or keep you in bondage.
Racism is still alive in America. I'm tired of more. Death is better than bondage.
I'm going to hand the floor over to you so you can kind of give us the lay of the land on this.
Well, you know, Obsidian, there's an old cliche that says the more things change, the more they remain the same. One of the things you've always shared is that there's an issue with black men and black women as it relates to relationships. And this young woman is more or less reverberating that same negative sentiment about the negative denigration of black men in general. And so I was shocked to the point that I wasn't shocked, because we always make a very unfair assumption that because a person is a professional, that they're not going to revert to behaviors that are more or less a denigration to their profession. But you've seen it, I've seen it. Many of the women that we esteem as professional women, many times, they're no different than the women we see on the streets. They're like that, the levels of credentialing and also the education as well. So I'm not shocked, to say the least. It's in my opinion, a very liberal machine that's constantly being promulgated in the media about the image of black men, and actually it's the overgeneralization, in my opinion, about black men.
You're here as a professional, and I defer to your judgment on this. What are your thoughts on all of this that has gone on? Understandable, in my estimation, Moses, that a lot of brothers can't trust the system, and a lot of brothers, this is going to sound bad, can't trust black women either. This is going to sound bad, can't trust black women either.
Yeah, sadly, Obsidian, we live in a very toxic culture, man. And, you know, as I said before in the past, some people will assert that America is a true patriarchy. I will argue that sentiment. It's a quasi-patriarchy, in my opinion. Some will even say a pseudo-patriarchy, because, see, watch this. A patriarchy, in my best estimation, is this. It's a patriarchy when all men are inculcated in the governing of laws, rules, and regulations. Black men never had power at the macro level. That's the highest level. The judicial level, the political system, and also where the laws are made. The second level is called the meso level. That's the community level. Some will argue that in the past, black men had a stronger pulse on the community, and they had some power or some semblance of power to some degree. And then the last stage is the micro level, which is the individualized or the family level. But we see a system now where gynocentric thinking is the norm, because, see, I'm going to be in the movie Frustrated 3 with Al Grease. I'm going to be I'm going to be in New York tomorrow. I got to fly out to New York. And I'm going to be in New York tomorrow. We're going to be filming the movie. We're going to be dropping the premiere. You guys can get it for $15.99. Shout out to Al Grease.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But what it is, Obsidian, it's once again, it's the over-identification of the negative as it relates to the masculine. It's the minimization of the masculine, which is a thinking error, and it's the magnification of the feminine. Dr. T. Hassan Johnson called it the gyno-potestal order. And so what you're seeing now is gynocrats continue to spew hatred and negative barbs towards black men. And really, once again, it's the overgeneralization of black men in their position as it relates to power and as it relates to their identity and also as it relates to their character. We tend to over-identify with the negative, where in other cultures...
Ms. Two Hearts exclusive says, she, being Ms. Shabree Rawls, said go to therapy, and I'm confused to that.
It's not what you say, it's how you say it. Listen, the helping profession is about altruism. The helping profession is about healing. There's a time in the therapeutic process as it relates to the interventions, Obsidian, where you can confront clients. But what this woman did, she did an overgeneralization once again, and she spewed negative rhetoric towards the people that she's supposed to hate. It's one thing to say how you feel, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. What she said was unbecoming as a professional, and I'm going to explain it to you. Can you imagine, Obsidian, if I said, you dumb bees, go get therapy. If you were more logical, you would not be in the predicament that you are in right now with all these baby daddies. Go get therapy, you dumb bees. How do you think that would have went over?
you would be, not only would you have been sacked, you would have gotten the Andrew Tate treatment.
Exactly.
By the end of business hours. It would have been a done deal.
Right, exactly. Right. So you know, it's not what you say, but it's how you say it. Once again, the counseling profession is a helping profession. It's a profession of healing. And once again, there's a time to confront, but that was not the time, because what she did is one thing us sitting to talk about getting therapy as it relates to individualized healing. But see, she was looking at healing from a solipsistic perspective. Individualized healing would be men get therapy and get help so that you can heal yourself. Right. But she said, we need you to get therapy so so you basically saying you low IQ bitches can know how to talk to women. So it was very denigrating. It was very offensive. And she wasn't doing it from a point of altruism. She was doing it from a point of elitism and also speaking down, condescending to black men, something many times that they hear their mother say to men. And so, you know, as I said before earlier on the show earlier, boys tend to more or less over-identify with the feminine. In the clinical world, Obsidian, there's a concept called introjection. You got introjection when you take in information from the external environment. There's a concept called introjection. You got introjection when you take in information from the external environment. There's a concept called introjection. You got introjection when you take in information from the external environment. Children and women tend to introject. Children and women tend to introject. Children and women tend to introject. But that introjection, Obsidian, turns to many times internalization. So you begin to internalize the pathology or the information that you're getting. Because remember this, the woman is the first teacher after she's been given instruction by the man. The woman is the first teacher after she's been given instruction by the man. The woman is the first teacher after she's been given instruction by the man. So the woman get the teaching from the man, because we always say the woman's the first teacher, but that's a misnomer. The man really is the master teacher. The woman is the sub-teacher, and she gives the information to the children. Right. The man gives the information to the woman disseminates the information to the children. Right. So the woman get the teaching from the man, because we always say the woman's the first teacher, but that's a misnomer. The man really is the master teacher. The woman is the sub-teacher, and she gives the information to the children. Right. The man gives the information to the woman disseminates the information to the children. Right. So the woman get the teaching from the man, because we always say the woman's the first teacher, but that's a misnomer. The man really is the master teacher. The woman is the sub-teacher, and she gives the information to the children. Right. The man gives the information to the woman disseminates the information to the children. Right. So it's introjection, internalization, identification. The last step is projection. Mm-hmm. And so we tend to internalize a lot of times the things that our mothers tell us, to the point we don't do things based on principle. We do things based on what our mother told us. And so we tend to internalize a lot of times the things that our mothers tell us, to the point we don't do things based on principle. We do things based on what our mother told us. And so we tend to internalize a lot of times the things that our mothers tell us, to the point we don't do things based on principle. We do things based on what our mother told us. told us, on what our mother told us, on what our mother told us, on what our mother told us. And that's why so many guys tend to be what I call unconscious simps. They supplement irrational male patterns. It's a pattern of behaviors that they actually emit. And it's not based on principle. The masculine is based on principle because it doesn't change. They supplement irrational male patterns. It's a pattern of behaviors that they actually emit. And it's not based on principle. The masculine is based on principle because it doesn't change. They supplement irrational male patterns. It's a pattern of behaviors that they actually emit. And it's not based on principle. The masculine is based on principle because it doesn't change. It's not based on principle. The masculine is based on principle because it doesn't change. It's not based on principle. The masculine is based on principle because it doesn't change. It's not based on principle. The masculine is based on principle because it doesn't change. It's based on principle because it doesn't change. It's based on principle because it doesn't change. You're from Philly. I'm from the Tar Heel State. Back in the 80s and the 90s, we used to say word is bond. The word is bond. If I say I got you, I got you. Your word is your bond. You don't change. Right. But see, when you do things based on the feminine, it's fickle. It's based on how I feel. Do you see my point? Feelings are fickle. They're very mercurial. They don't have any substance. But when you do things based on principles, it's unchanging. It's similar to the Greek. In the Greek, it's called Petra. It means rock. And so it's based on principle. It doesn't change. The feminine is fickle. It's based on how I feel. Do you see my point? Feelings are fickle. They're very mercurial. They don't have any substance. But when you do things based on principles, it's unchanging. It's similar to the Greek. In the Greek, it's called Petra. It means rock. And so it's based on principle. It doesn't change. The feminine is fickle. It's based on how I feel. Do you see my point? Feelings are fickle. They're very mercurial. They don't have any substance. But when you do things based on principles, it's unchanging. It's similar to the Greek. In the Greek, it's called Petra. It means rock. And so it's based on principle. It doesn't change. And so a lot of boys have more or less learned to do things based on how they feel, based on the over-identification with their mother, sadly, many times. And what it does, what this woman is doing, she's
celebrating his death. What do you make of all of that?
Well, it's more of woke ideology. It's more of woke indoctrination. This guy probably associates with as a male feminist. And
let me right there. Right. This is confirmed. Okay, that's a fact. Okay, go ahead, continue.
Right. And so basically, what they do, Obsidian, you got these unconscious simps that what they do, they tend to pander to women for monetary gain. They don't tell him the truth. This guy has a reason to do what he's doing because he got a right to make money, similar to the Derek Jacksons of the world. You tell them what they want to hear instead of telling them the truth. So when you tell people what they want to hear, you tend to assuage them in their pathologies. But when you tell them the truth, you confront their pathologies. And many times when you tell people the truth, Obsidian, they have a condition, a term that I created called a schema affliction. A schema affliction. A schema is a fixated way of thinking. That schema could be good or bad. It's in CBT, but then the schema also is a byproduct of pain and hurt. So they have a schema. The schema is black men ain't ish. Black men can't be trusted. Black men are lame. Black men abuse women. Black men hate black women. And so it's based on trauma proxy. Based on pain, the fear that they've been through from the past, whether they saw their fathers abandon their mothers or they got with men that hurt them. And so they overgeneralize, as I said earlier, and castigate aspersions to all black men, to say the least. So I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. It's profit.
Why are they so angry with Kevin? Even though he's been gone now for almost 4 months. What is that all about?
Well, listen, Obsidian, some of this stuff is spiritual. I'm not here to talk about religion. But some of it is spiritual. If you look at it through the lens of the esoteric, some call it the spirit of the Antichrist. And basically what it means is anything associated with masculine or anything associated with the patriarchy is under a negative umbrella. So some of it is very spiritual, to say the least. As I said earlier, once again, Obsidian, a lot of also is just negative socialization. It's negative socialization. And many times, it's popular to just more or less dump on black men because it makes them feel good about themselves. See, when you're constantly dumping on black men and making black men scapegoat, you don't have the time to look at yourself. Because see, if men and women will look at themselves, and shout out to all the good women, there's some good sisters, so shout out to them, because a sister is the one that told about this woman. But see, if they look at themselves, they will have a break. Their minds will break, and they will get a condition called the Medusa complex. Medusa, when anytime she will hold or look at people, they will become petrified. But see, if women will look at themselves, they won't like what they will see in the mirror. So they have the Medusa complex, just like Medusa. You point the image of Medusa to the person, and they become petrified and they look like stone. So they can't look at themselves because they won't like what they're seeing. So what they do, they continue to go to this dark karmic cycle of victimhood. Instead of evolving, they remain the same because they use black men as scapegoats. What they do, they continue to go to this dark karmic cycle of victimhood. Instead of evolving, they remain the same because they use black men as scapegoats. What they do, they continue to go to this dark karmic cycle of victimhood. Instead of evolving, they remain the same because they use black men as scapegoats. Because they use black men as scapegoats. Because they use black men as scapegoats.
That's my big fear about that. What do you say about that?
Well, that's an excellent question, Obsidian. Here's the problem. Most therapists are trained under what's called the feminist theory lens. I'm going to say it again. They're trained under the canopy of the feminist theory lens. The feminist theory lens basically posits this, that women have historically been oppressed, women need to fight for rights and all of that stuff. But once again, as I said earlier, black men historically, in my opinion, I could be wrong, but black men never had the power to enact policies to oppress anybody. Now,
here in the United States, that's not a matter of debate. Here in the United States, that's a fact. So you're saying it's not theoretical. Now, you want to take it to Africa or whatever, fine. But here in the United States, black men have never been in a position, even when Barack Hussein Obama Jr. was president of the United States, he couldn't just do whatever he wanted to do. He was hamstrung a lot of times. But we just don't have, what you're saying there is definitely a fact. I just want to make that very clear. Please continue.
Yeah, they never had the power of Obsidian to impact laws. Now watch this. If we want to argue about issues that are endemic to all people, which is domestic issues, well, all people have been through domestic issues. Indians have had domestic issues with their women. White men have had domestic issues. Black men, we all have had domestic issues. But here's the problem with that. Those grandfathers that were drinking, or those grandfathers that were having sex or having out of wedlock kids, a lot of that Obsidian was trauma. It was trauma based on Jim Crow racism, but also it was trauma by proxy to what they saw their mothers and their grandfathers go through. And so their coping mechanisms were not healthy coping mechanisms. They coped through negative coping and self-medication that looked like alcohol, sex, and said sometimes domestic violence. But we tend to overgeneralize once again and create this negative vortex about black men, and that all black men, my granddaddy, they just abused women, had kids by other women. But see, the foolishness to that is this: there were a lot of older women of the past that were making babies when men went off to war, but we don't talk about that. We don't talk about the women down the street that knew that man had a wife and they still slept with him. We don't talk about that. So we always talk about black men and what they've done, but we don't talk about nobody else. No different than the passport bros thing going on right now. White men have been traveling, traversing the world for years, going to different parts of the world, dealing with women. White women have been coming to Africa and Jamaica, dealing with those young bucks in that country. Black women have been going to the grill Jamaica for years, getting their groove on. Stella got a groove back. But then as soon as black men decide to travel, you tricking, on goofy stuff. So it's almost like black men got to be what's called, what I call, a term I created called the commodification of subjugation. They're commodities to be subjugated based on her own solipsistic needs. A term I created called the commodification of subjugation. They're commodities to be subjugated based on her own solipsistic needs. A term I created called the commodification of subjugation. They're commodities to be subjugated based on her own solipsistic needs. Dr. T.S. Johnson talked about the concu serf, where I parroted that called the commodification of subjugation. Basically, our job is to serve the queen, don't ask any questions, give unbridled loyalty, and just do it just because. Our job is to serve the queen, don't ask any questions, give unbridled loyalty, and just do it just because. Our job is to serve the queen. Don't ask any questions, give unbridled loyalty, and just do it just because. That's a matriarchy. Because in a patriarchy, the woman serves the man, and the man takes care of the woman.
Opinions based on gender.
Well, Kevin Samuels was based on a heteronormative, masculine, traditional perspective. Dr. Matos is based on an egalitarian perspective where the women rule alongside with the men. That's the succinct difference. Men by nature, Obsidian, are traditional. They are traditional. So Kevin Samuels' position speaks more credence because it speaks to the core of men. Dr. Matos' perspective speaks to weak, unconscious simps that don't know any better, and they defer their power instead of demanding power in the relationship. The problem I'm seeing with some of these modern women, they say they go to church, they say I love the law, but when you look at the tenets of theology is clear. It says God, Christ, man, woman, and children. It's a hierarchy. It's a descending hierarchy. God gives instruction to Christ, Christ gives instructions to the man gives instructions to the family. But see, the modern woman is a representation of what happened with the original sin. It was a war going on, and they were both jousting for power. But Frederick Douglass said that power never conceded Obsidian to anything. It never have, and it never will. So they want power. And they want power in the relationship. But see, when men defer their power, they're not protecting their woman. They're leaving their woman vulnerable. When men defer their power, they're not protecting their woman. They're leaving their woman vulnerable. When men defer their power, they're not protecting their woman. They're leaving their woman vulnerable. Men have to set standards and principles in the relationship. But anything associated with power and standards, we always look at it through the lens of abuse. Because, once again, it's trauma. I want to clarify something. I'm an LCSW, so thank you for the law. I'm not a doctor, but I am a licensed clinician. I'm licensed.
Well, I consider it a term of affection.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I have 3 degrees though, so I am highly educated. But yeah, so but like I said, Obsidian, once again, that's the norm here in America. When you go to Africa, when you traverse to Brazil and those other countries, if the women get out of line, there's a consequence. There's a consequence for bad behavior. See, here in America, we tolerate bad behavior as men because we think that bad behavior is normal. But see, Obsidian, when men travel abroad, if you ever get a chance to travel Obsidian, when you get greeted by a feminine, kind woman, a feminine oscillator, a woman that's spraying perfume on you as a man, then it satiates your soul. That's why men have a catharsis when they come back to the States, because their family are under the embrace of a true feminine woman, a condition called affection deprivation, meaning they've been so deprived of affection for so long. Once again, men have a need that they can pour into. That's why I advocate for men to get their passports, because it's based on Dr. William Glasser's choice theory. Dr. Glasser's psychoanalytic model of choice theory, Obsidian says this: men, when needs are not getting met based on the elements of power, fun, freedom, belonging, and survival, then there's an internal conversation that's going on that needs to be satiated. Abraham Maslow talked about self-actualization. He talked about all the levels of self-actualization. The base level is shelter, food, and clothing. Now, I don't necessarily agree with his whole theory of self-actualization, but that's for another conversation. But Dr. William Glasser in choice theory say that needs drive behaviors. Men don't feel like they have power in America. They're not having fun. They don't feel like they belong. We're definitely not surviving because men die off higher than women do. Yeah. And many don't feel like they have freedom to be their authentic selves. In the clinical world, we call it your authentic self, meaning you're just being who you are. But see, so many men suppress their masculinity based on whatever reason, whether it be woke policies or because they were raised in families where the women were very overbearing. They don't say what they really mean. And so many times, Obsidian, because of stress and distress, they go to the grave with dreams deferred. Langston Hughes said, what happens when a dream becomes deferred?
And what was really fascinating was that other women of other cultures care more about me than the black woman that say they love me. That is the scary part. Your response to that, Doc?
Well, they love themselves. As I said once again earlier, if a woman is not thinking like a soldier, she can never really love a man, because a soldier does not think about herself. See, it's contraindicated. We say contraindicated in the clinical world. It's contraindicated for a woman to put her man first unless she's been socially conditioned to do it. We call it nature versus nurture. here in America, she tends to adhere to her nature versus the nurture. Her nature is that intrinsic worth that she have as it relates to her feelings. Nurture is the socialization. So she does not adhere to nurture, but she adheres to her nature, which is to more or less think about herself first. That's why in the last election, they didn't vote for black men, black families, black children in the black community. They voted for themselves. They said chucks and pearls. But she adheres to her nature, which is to more or less think about herself first. That's why in the last election, they didn't vote for black men, black families, black children in the black community. They voted for themselves. They said chucks and pearls. But she adheres to her nature, which is to more or less think about herself first. That's why in the last election, they didn't vote for black men, black families, black children in the black community. They voted for themselves. They said chucks and pearls. They said chucks and pearls. Chucks and pearls, they more or less give credence to black men. But see, when it comes down to black men and black family, black children, black girls and boys, when it comes down to servitude, then you put the black man over here. So when it comes down to servitude, then the black man needs to serve and don't ask no questions. When it comes down to individualism, Obsidian, they always talk about themselves. And that's a problem. Because you can't talk about one end, we need black men to protect us in the community. When you look at the polls from the last election, they said chucks and pearls. So guess what? I got a new hashtag called passports and pearls. Because see, men are getting their passports and they're casting their pearls to women that are feminine, kind, honorable, and respect them as men. And so, but because so many women, see, you got good women that's trying to show these women the right way, but they call them mammies and pygmies. You got some sisters that are listening to you tonight. They're good women. But see, they don't hear what those women are saying either, Obsidian, because they are deaf. That's an acronym that I created. It's called DEAF. They deny the evidence when you give it to them, Obsidian. They become enraged when you present them with the evidence. They argue, do ad hominem attacks. They attack the messenger instead of the message, and they will fight you or flee. That's what they had when it came down to Kevin Samuels. It was cognitive dissonance at its highest because they cannot see or hear what's going on because it would confirm their bias or minimize their confirmation bias. It would challenge their confirmation bias. Just like for so many years, some white supremacists said that black men were inferior. So when they went to Africa and started seeing statues where black men, the statues looked like Africans, that because, once again, true to Dr. William Glasser, needs drive behaviors, and men are beginning to get their needs met elsewhere because they can't get it here. And what's going to do is going to create a desert for the good women, Obsidian, that are striving to do the right thing. The dark triad, mostly Obsidian, is predicated on psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and I forgot the other one. I know psychopathy, Machiavellianism, narcissism, right? And they can have those traits, but not necessarily have all of them. But I think it's definitely an issue in this country. Now, narcissistic personality disorder, Obsidian, it tends to be more so in men. But many modern women have narcissistic traits. A personality disorder is totally different than having those traits. And so, Machiavellianism is using influence to manipulate and get what you want. You see it many times with the Me Too movement. Narcissism is always about me. It's about me. I'm special. Right. Like the woman that killed her children. She said it was Jermaine's fault. Right. She didn't look at herself. And then the psychopathy is more of, I forgot more or less in detail, but the psychopathy is more about psychopathic tendencies, doing things that are negative and dangerous, to say the least. Yeah. So, I think it's definitely something that you tend to see more so in the West because there's no accountability. There's no accountability, Obsidian. And see, in behavioral psychology, in a relationship, the man and the woman both should benefit. But see, it's a negative reinforcement when she benefits. When it's negative reinforcement when you don't benefit, and it's positive reinforcement when she benefits. And congruence in relationship, you benefit, she benefit, you both benefit in that relationship. But in this country now, men just defer power. It's negative reinforcement when you don't benefit, and it's positive reinforcement when she benefits. And congruence in relationship, you benefit, she benefit, you both benefit in that relationship. But in this country now, men just defer power. It's negative reinforcement when you don't benefit, and it's positive reinforcement when she benefits. and congruence in relationship, you benefit and she benefit, you both benefit in that relationship. But in this country now, men just defer power.
Breed thing. It sounds like, and you touched on this earlier, it sounds like she and many other black women want black men to emote for their benefit, not
yes,
even though they
yes,
claim
right.
it for the benefit of the black men. And the reason why I say that is because my thing is, I don't get the sense from these ladies who say this, Miss Rawls and these other black women who say this, and I want to be clear, put it that way, because I'm not saying all black women say this.
Right.
What's fascinating about it, I don't think that they want to hear brothers' inner lives if it doesn't comport with what happens if those brothers say something you don't want to hear.
Well, right. You remember the song that Shaka Khan said back in the day? She said, "Tell me something good."
Yeah.
They want to hear something good. See, women want the convenient truth as it benefits their feelings, but they don't want the truth for the sake of truth. That's the difference. They want the convenient truth as it benefits their feelings, Obsidian, but they don't want the truth for the sake of truth. The objective truth.
With the $10 super chat, thank you so much, lady. She says, Kosher, do you see the need for more black male therapists to help the black men in this country? If so, environment for men in general. Excellent question. Doc, what do you say about that?
Well, yeah, in theory, what Luke Casey is saying is good, but here's the problem. If a person cannot, it depends on if you are a traditional male therapist. So if the population is if most men are by nature are traditional, then they're not teaching traditionalism in these bastions of liberalism. They're not teaching it. So if they can successfully separate and use the tools from their basic education in these liberal colleges to use it to build black men and be creative outside of their the teaching or the indoctrination, then they'll be fine. But they don't know how to successfully think outside what they've been taught based on pedagogy, then they're going to be more of the problem. They're not teaching traditionalism in these bastions of liberalism. They're not teaching it. So if they can successfully separate and use the tools from their basic education in these liberal colleges to use it to build black men and be creative outside of their the teaching or the indoctrination, then they'll be fine. But they don't know how to successfully think outside what they've been taught based on pedagogy, then they're going to be more of the problem. They're not teaching traditionalism in these bastions of liberalism. They're not teaching it. So if they can successfully separate and use the tools from their basic education in these liberal colleges to use it to build black men and be creative outside of their the teaching or the indoctrination, then they'll be fine. But they don't know how to successfully think outside what they've been taught based on pedagogy, then they're going to be more of the problem. This country is being influenced by socialist policies, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And so it depends on how they are more or less able to decipher and break down what they've learned from college. If you can separate, be objective with what you need to be objective with, and then use some of the teachings to more or less convey what you need to convey to men that are traditional, then it's no issue. But many can't do it because they're not independent thinkers. Many can't do it because they're not independent thinkers. Many can't do it because they're not independent thinkers, Obsidian. They don't think outside what they've been learning. They're rail thinkers. They're rail thinkers. They're rail thinkers. Basically, they do things based on a rail. We call it rote memorization. But they're rail thinkers. They can't deviate from that rail. Basically, they do things based on a rail. We call it rote memorization. But they're rail thinkers. They can't deviate from that rail. Basically, they do things based on a rail. We call it rote memorization. But they're rail thinkers. They can't deviate from that rail. You ever seen a train on a train track?
That's right.
And they just go based on what the rails say.
On the lines of a certain schema, as you said, it's not. They're not actually interested in what men think. They want to program you to think a certain way so that you will be subservient to female. And if you're not subservient, then they automatically look at you as some kind of brute or some kind of unintellectual person. But for me, what I found though is that repentance, right? And the Bible talks about repentance. Repentance means that you confess, but you turn away from that behavior. And I think that's what's missing in the current psychology that's ruled by women. They're not interested in changing their behavior.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I totally agree.
And so, you know, my daughter had gotten therapy, and I asked her because, you know, my wife was kind of putting some enmity between me and my kids. You know, she was trying to keep my kids from me, you know, because we were divorced or whatever. But she ended up getting therapy, and my ex-wife actually told me this, right? And she said that my daughter used to cry because she missed me. And I'm like, yo, why didn't you just try to contact me? Because I'm always trying to contact you guys, and it seems like I can never get through, and I can never find out what's going on with you guys. So eventually she said, you know, my daughter said she went to a therapist, and I asked, why didn't the therapist tell you?
When he leaves, stay where you at. Go ahead, Doc.
Well, succinctly, Obsidian, once again, is through the feminist theory lens. The man is the object of oppression. The man is always the bad guy. You see it in the media all the time. Men are bumbling idiots, to the point that Dr. Helen Smith wrote a book, Dr. Susan Vanker, they both wrote books talking about how men are treated in America. So men are the approximation to what they feel have caused them pain. So when you keep telling women years after year that men are the reasons why society is messed up, men cause problems, men are bumbling idiots, even though those same said women benefit from the creations that men create, then you go and create a narrative that's based on feelings instead of being based on facts. So I hear so many men therapists, men that say they don't want to go to some female therapists, not all, because they're very biased towards men, and sometimes I'm saying they're not even aware of their biases. As a therapist, you're supposed to set aside your biases for the most part, unless it conflicts with your true belief systems and do the job. And if you can't do the job, you just refer them out. So they have biases towards men. And in America, if the man is guilty until proven innocent, it's happened to me before. I'm 6'6", Obsidian, 6'6", deep voice, masculine.
You're a big guy.
I'm a big guy, right? Yeah. And so it's happened to me many times. I was guilty until before proven innocent. They didn't care. They just judged me based on my status.
And you know what's so messed up? Those same black women that didn't want guys like us will be the same one that say they love you. So I don't have to worry about a busty Latina telling me they call me a race traitor. It's the black women that will tell you that they love you to your face and stab you in your back. It's the black women that will tell you that they love you to your face and stab you in your back. It's the black women that will tell you that they love you to your face and stab you in your back.
Right.
And yet we're supposed to be the ones to get on this stuff. I'm like, nah, man. Nah, what happened to me, that was like the last straw. I mean, I thought that I couldn't lose any hope for the sisters. When it happened on my birthday, and the worst part was they called me a race traitor to my face on my birthday and embarrassed me in the restaurant. It got to the point where we had to leave. Right.
Well, I'm not surprised, man. They have this spurious notion, and in research we call it spurious. Spurious is a term that they use if there's another variable that appears. So they got this spurious notion that the black men are monoliths, they own us, and if we do anything outside of the matriarchy, then you got to answer to the queen bee. And so I'm not
be a race trader.
Right.
I was.
Right. Remember, you're a drone and she's the queen. So you're supposed to do what the queen say. You don't supposed to be an independent thinker. You're supposed to do what the queen bee says. And so if you go outside of it, it's an issue. But however, when black women marry white men, they say, "You go, girl." Black. But when black men do it, then all of a sudden you're a race traitor. I had a person. I've heard women in the past, saying that men are dealing with Afro-Latin women, and they get mad. So I'm not surprised at it, man. Not surprised at it at all. I tell men to live your lives on your own terms and do it based on the concept of self-determination. That's a concept that's in the code of ethics that we use. The clients have the right to self-determination, but you can look at it outside of the clinical and just say it in general.
Clause C5 outlines this, her being Shabree Rawls, her generalizing negatively black men as, quote, uneducated, quote, not hardworking, quote, entitled, quote, obsessed with dominating women was discriminatory. Your response, sir?
Oh, yeah. It's definitely discriminatory. Like I said, it's the overgeneralization of black men. You're basically taking a whole population sample and you're saying that 100% all black men are this way. And that's an affront to black men, to say the least. So what she did was horrific. She's probably going to get censored. But the sad thing is, Obsidian, you saying that her followers are increasing. that points to the sad decay that we have here in the society, where up is down and down is up. Right is wrong and wrong is right. There is outcry, but people supporting this woman speak to why men. It's all in how you're treated. See, Obsidian, there's a concept called the psychosomatic response. In the clinical world, we call it somatoform disorders. But psycho means the mind, soma means body. But they both are integrated because human beings are integrated beings with soul, body, mind, and spirit. And so when one is off kilter or not calibrated, it can cause the other one to impact the other. That's why in theology they said that the mind is willing, but the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. They both have to be in congruence. That's why I tell men when they make a decision, make sure that your heart and your mind is clear. Because see, many times a man, heart would say, I still love that woman, but his logical mind is saying she's not good for me. So you have to challenge your heart and question your heart.
I don't have a problem with a woman wanting to be a partner. Mm-hmm. The problem I have with many black women is that they want equal say once everything's been built. They haven't put in the sweat equity. They don't want to build a boo. They don't want to help build a brother up. They want to wait at the finish line and let the quote-unquote high-value man cross the finish line. Now they want to be an equal partner in what he got going on. Mm-hmm. That really chaps my hide, Doc. And I just want to get your thought on that.
Well, let me say this. Once again, the word partner, the first time I heard about that was when I was in graduate school. But whether they want you to be a partner at the finish line or also before you reach your point or the pinnacle of your success, it's wrong in my opinion. If you're a traditional man, I'm going to explain why. Some people use the partner and it's very innocuous. It's innocent. They don't mean anything by it. But see, when you look at it through the tenets of theology, your husband can't be your partner. Because see, a husband is the person that cares for her, guide her. The word husbandry is more or less predicated on a person that takes care of a garden. So if the woman is the garden and the children are the fruit of that said garden, then how can they both be partners? One is the facilitator of life and the tender of life. So you can't be a partner if you both if you're supposed to follow your husband's leadership. You can't have a captain, but then at the same time have sailors. Sailors can't be captains and captains can't be sailors. One got to be the captain, and the other one got to be the sailor. But see, in egalitarian relationships, they both have equal power. They both can make choices and decisions. But see, if you're doing that, then you're not following your husband. Because I go by the topology of the moon. The moon, Obsidian, gives light. The sun gives life and light to the moon. The moon reflects the sun. Correct. So how can you be a partner if the sun is a giver of life and light? Light for illumination and light and light for also life for warmness. The sun gives what's called photosynthesis. So the moon doesn't do photosynthesis, so you can't be a partner. One got to be under the mission of the other. That's why it's called submission. You're under the mission of the sun, but you both benefit because it's a symbiotic relationship. The sun gives light and life. The moon reflects the mission of the sun, but they both benefit. It's a symbiotic relationship, no different than a crocodile and those birds that get the parasites out of the teeth. The crocodile say, I will not eat the bird. The bird say, I'll get the parasites out for you. The crocodile is more stronger than the bird, but at the same time, the bird gets the parasites out. But see, women get penis envy, some of them, because they want power. Like I told you before in the past, men and women are equal as it relates to humanity.
As a matter of fact, Shabree Rawls said that herself in one of her TikTok videos. She said, "How you guys want women to submit, and you ain't got nothing to be submitting to?" What do you say to that?
Well, that's a woman that's not in synchronicity of who she is. See, some women believe in conditional femininity. They say, "I'll submit if you do X, Y, Z," but that's not always a guarantee. There are many powerful men like Jeff Bezos, other men. What's his name? The singer, Tyrese.
Right.
They got money, they got status. Did the women submit? No. So that's a fallacy. That's a faux pas. That's a fallacy to say the least. Because watch this, Obsidian. Mm-hmm. If we're gonna look at things through the traditional lens of paying all the bills, what men are saying, some, not all, modern women need to be prorated. Because watch this. Your grandfather and your great grandfather, what did they get when they got married? I'm gonna give it to you. They got a virgin. They got a woman that didn't have no kids, and they got a woman that was wife ready. That woman was worthy of having all the bills paid. But see, what you're getting now, you got women that have had a lot of fun, and that's what you want to do. That's your business. They got kids by other men, and they sure as hell ain't wife ready. So why would you pay all the bills for someone that have more or less not lived up to the mandate? Right.
Every child you got here, we're gonna prorate it.
We're gonna prorate it, right? Because you can't. One man say you're traditional, but you don't live up to the bastion of traditionalism. My grandmother, when she got married, didn't have kids by other men. She was wife ready, and my grandmother was a virgin. So my granddaddy, his task was to pay all the bills and be the supervisor. My mom was one. My mom and dad been married for over 50 years.
Wow.
So my dad paid all the bills. Well, why would you pay all the bills for something that's not new? And I know that might sound terse, but that's what men are saying. Kevin Samuels even said, he said, why would you expect all these expectations with something that's been used and getting older? And I know that sounds harsh, but it's the truth. Listen, I'm saying, I can't take old sneakers and then try to sell them for a new price. It just don't work. It's a principle that I call the open box theory. Yeah. And so basically it's the law of diminishing returns. Every time you open that box, Obsidian, the product becomes less and less precious. If it's a pure box, it's untainted. Yeah. But if you open the box and close it back up, then it's been tainted. If I open the box, take the product out and close it back up, so I got to pay full price. Do the research on it. I mean, a traditional woman of the past, that's what it looked like. But you can't say, I want you to be traditional, but you're not purely traditional. You're not kosher traditional, because kosher means pure.
Right.
I'm not trying to be cast aspersion. I'm not trying to be rude or mean. I'm just looking through the lens of logic.
Yeah.
No different Obsidian can a man say he want a wholesome woman, but he's a bum. He eat Cheetos, he sit on the couch, he playing video games.
Right.
I feel the same way for men.
Yeah.
Men become over time. So men have the right to say, this is what I want. If you don't meet my needs, then you just don't qualify. Because I came up with a term, Obsidian, called the prize catcher.
Right.
The man determines if she is a prize. She's a prize in her head. But until that man anoint her to be the prize, she's not the prize. Because Warrioe seeks his own level. I think Will said that, or BGS, one of them said that. But Warrioe seeks its own level. A woman that's a one can only hope to get a man that's a one. But if that one say, I don't want to marry you, then that woman don't get married. So men are the prize catchers. He determines if she's a prize, because men are the gatekeepers to relationships. The man determines if she's a prize. And so therefore, if he determines her to be a prize, then she gets caught. She can be a prize in her head until that man recruit her to be his wife. She's on the sideline.
It says traditional men and women marry young. If you're over 25, never married, you're not traditional. Traditionalism is not just about paying all the bills. It's about values.
Yeah, there's some truth to that. There's some truth to what she's saying. I can agree with that in part. But I don't know necessarily about the age requirement. Well, traditionally, most people did get married young, so there's some truth to that. But you could be what's called contemporary traditional. Okay. Old school traditional, contemporary traditional. There are women that are modern, but they still have traditional values. We all live in a modern milieu, Obsidian, but you still can have traditional values. You just have to more or less, how can I say, modify to a degree to fit the current world that we live in, but you still can adhere to traditional values. You might not be. Yeah,
that's the thing that really bothers me, Doc, is that and I want to be clear about this. I'm not saying all black women feel this way. I want to make that clear. But for the ladies who do talk about wanting to be a partner and stuff like that, I'm with you on that. It sounds harsh to say that. Don't come at me with this and you got 2 or 3 baby daddies, you wide open, right. And all the rest of it. I got no problem paying the bill. That's my natural. You are right about one thing, Doc, because as you were talking, I could identify with it. My natural inclination is to lean more traditional than not. I have no problem courting the lady. I have no problem paying the bills. I have no problem. If protection needs to be done, I'm Johnny on the spot. I got no problem with any of that. But then these same ladies, they want to be able to buck up on you. They want to be able to give you all kind of lip. They want to be able to just let themselves go, etc., etc., etc. That's a turnoff to me personally, and I can imagine that's a turnoff to so many other black men. Right. Because see, in other countries, Obsidian, they don't have to fall back like the government or laws that are not fair to men. So
they don't really need their men because there's not a consequence for bad behavior. But see, in the other country, because it's a kosher patriarchy, well, not always kosher, but it is a patriarchy where the men lead at the governmental level, they lead in the community, they lead in the families. The women have no other choice but to adhere, because if they don't adhere, then there's going to be a consequence. And so men got to say to themselves, unless I get what I want, if you're not honoring me and respecting me, then there's going to be a consequence. And men are beginning to say that now. That's why passports have so much power. It's power in that passport. Because what that passport would do, Obsidian, it'll give you a different perspective. I told men, Obsidian, that there are 7 steps that a man must go through in order to become optimized. Faith, family, finances, female psychology, politics, world travel, and I forgot what the other one was. But once the man can successfully go through those 7 steps, he become optimized, which world travel is. And world travel is one of the antecedents to help men become optimized, because our ancestors were travelers. Men were travelers. Traveling is actually part of men. Well, listen, my man, A Peaceful Life came up with a concept called relationship capitalism. And basically what it means is this, you use your purchasing power to get the best bang for your buck. Pun intended, no pun intended. I created a term, the parastat, called relationship inflation. America has become an inflated market of entitlement, where the women feel that I'm just going to give you a product, but it's a product that's not worth buying many times. So what men are saying, I'm going to optimize my buying power and use my buying power to get the best product for my money. Listen, would you Obsidian pay for a Maybach that had, 80,000 miles on it, pay full price for that versus a brand new Maybach?
I'm voting for the brand new Maybach. You better believe it.
Right. So women by nature are shoppers. So women always use coupons. Many of them use coupons. They're trying to get the best bang for their value. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because see, women, I always tell people, men might judge your past, but they're going to judge your future. We both judge, but we judge in different directions. The man judges her past, she judges his future, because she's judging his future based on earning potential.
How did we get here?
Well, I think it's negative. How can I say it? It's negative cultural appropriation as it relates to black men. Some would say that black women always wanted the ice water of Miss Anne. The white man's water is always colder. And so it's almost like, because the black man never lived up to the pinnacle of masculinity in the eyes of some, not all women, shout out to the good sisters, then they have this negative vitriol towards black men. But as I said before in the past, black men never had the power to oppress anyone. We never had the power. And so they appropriate their pain to what's called displaced aggression. But when you look at the evidence, through what we call collaborative empiricism, there is no evidence to the association or the accusation that's more or less been overgeneralized by all black men. Are there dusty, or what I call, not dusty, I don't like that word, but are there unproductive black men? Yes. Are there black men that have abused? Yes. But so have there been black women that have done the same thing. And so, once again, it's just that negative cultural appropriation of shame and denigration to the black man. And then also, it's based on negative socialization. They've never seen black men in the family, so you can't honor and respect what you haven't seen. And they never saw their fathers operate in power. Many times it was in subjugation and not being the men in that house.
I really didn't give an intro on purpose, so I can get straight to the business, just so you can understand it and see it and conserve some time. I told you once before, I stick with the words, and I try to get a better understanding of what those words mean, the etymology of those words, the origin of those words, how long those words have been in existence. I've also read out to you guys on many occasions the 4 patterns of speech most human beings use. Now, even though I say most human beings, you use it because the socialization. So socialization basically means the environment around us. When most of us are speaking academically, school, we use these terms, speech patterns, antonyms, synonyms, homographs, and homophones. So within those 4 patterns of speech, I go after the word. Why did they take that word out, and why is that word specifically put in? I'll figure out why the sentence is saying whatever the sentence is then that word is put there. And you guys heard a lot of words. I got it. I get it. That's why I'm here. What I wanted you guys to do is to listen to the psychology behind it. Feminism and African matriarchy is the same. The only thing that is going to hurt many scholars, many theologians is when you put them side by side, you're going to say African matriarchy is supposed to work under the umbrella of African patriarchy. I got all that. I got all of it. The point is women will destroy whatever the men build. Women will purposely destroy or subconsciously destroy, accidentally destroy whatever the men build, because in essence it restricts her from doing whatever she wants to do. However, she's savvy enough, she's intelligent enough, she's brilliant enough to understand she can't do it on her own. When you look at patterns, you'll see it. You'll see the lineage. We've been here before. We're repeating this pattern because of the women. Men build, women destroy. And when you guys hear certain things within this man's explanation, I'm hoping that you guys understand you're going to have to break away from the female. It's not that the female is a bad thing. You have to understand the female is a selfish thing. So when she problem solves, when she plans, when she thinks ahead, when she looks for a resolution, she's not looking for the best absolute resolution. She's looking for the best resolution that fits her, not what's best for the environment and for future generations. As the male said, men are principle, and the principle doesn't change. We are constant. Even if we go astray, eventually we will get back to order. We will get back to order no matter whose order it is. We will get back to order simply because anything outside of that order causes conflict. So if you're in lockup, you're still going to have to follow those rules and regulations, policies and procedures, because that's the order. That's what keeps you safe overall. Even if you're out in the wilderness and you're roughing it, you're going to have to fall back under the order of nature. Why? That's what keeps you safe. So in the paradigm of the civilian world, blacks and black women and black women and black men, the black female does not have to fall under the leadership and the structure and the order of the black male. Why? White supremacy, white racism, the devil, the serpent, whatever guys you term it, they're the ones that's catering to the female. When they cater to the female does not have to listen to your order. She doesn't want to be in the Garden of Eden. She doesn't want to abide by those rules. She doesn't want Adam to be over her. She's going to find an escape route. And all of her escape routes put her at the top of the pyramid, at the top of the totem pole. All of her escape routes. Whereas when it comes to the male in general, we don't need to be at the top. We really just need to be left alone. So if someone else wants to do the running, someone else wants to do the leadership, someone else wants to be the alpha, someone else wants to be in charge, we're cool with all that. Just leave us alone. Well, the women don't think like that. So whatever she structures, whatever her strategy is, she's always putting herself at the top. Now, she may use you as an image, as a psyop, as an optic illusion, but no, your job is to serve her. And that's what we're getting wrong. We don't go back into the history so that we can repeat the history. That is not the reason why we look behind us. We look behind us to see where we went wrong. And when you're able to study and when you're able to get out of that dire strait, that survival mode, you can see what put you in that survival mode, which was a deficit. Now that you're out of that survival mode, we don't go back into the books of Egyptology. We don't go back in the books of Asar, Haset, and Haru to actually recreate it. No, we get an understanding of what it is, what it was, how can it benefit us now, what are the things that we need to do to make it better, What were the things that went wrong? And we move forward in life in general. If the environment is inconducive to let the men lead, then the men can't lead. If the environment is inconducive to allow the female to lead, then the female can't lead. We have to go according to the environment. That's called evolution, progress. We need to put these men back on their throne. And if the females are going to keep being obstacles, you have to understand you're going to have to move on without her. All this passport stuff, I understand it in essence, because if this batch of female is no good, you're going to have to pick from another batch of female. The only problem with that is when it's done in a large number, you eventually will wipe out what we know to be the black race. Now, you will create a different race. There's no getting around that, but we don't need the black female to move forward with blackness. All we need is the black male. All biology is telling you that. I don't care what everybody else says. Biology is telling you all you need is the black male. If you have the black male, you by default prolong or continue or elongate the black race. Even if it isn't 100%, it will eventually go back to the phenotype of being black male. Biology says that. This idea of waiting on these women to do better, this idea of hoping that these women use logic over emotion, you can wait. I can't tell you not to wait. I'm telling you, a smarter ones, a stronger ones, we're not waiting. We waited long enough. The female has no desire to get out of that throne, to get out of that seat. She has every intention on staying on that throne, every intention on staying in that seat. All she wants to use the males for is a form of counsel. I'm in the chair and I'm going to stay in this chair. All I need you to do is be my advisor. Tell me where I'm going wrong. Tell me what I could do better. So, that way I don't actually, shoot myself in the foot. But I ain't ever coming out of this chair. And what you black men are going to have to do is you're going to have to take her out of the chair by any means necessary. You're going to have to start to sue black women. If they want to be a pawn or a puppet for white supremacy racism, you're going to have to sue them. Nah, man, you ain't got to do that. We ain't got to take it that far. You're going to have to sue them. Again, these are examples. Again, the boomers, gangs, hustlers, drug dealers, pimps, they were only able to get away with whatever it is that they decided to get away with because their parents, the silent generation, decided not to push back. The parents, the silent generation, decided not to push back because they were too old. And they just wanted to get in that ground as peaceful as possible. Not that they agreed or disagreed. They weren't in a condition to fight back. It was their sons and daughters, and how many are willing to put their sons and daughters in the ground? Not a lot. Not many people are willing to go to jail for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years because they killed their offspring. Why did they kill their offspring? Because their offspring was a rotten apple. Not many people are willing to do that. So what we have to do, we have to understand our children are rotten. Not only are they rotten genetically, they're rotten socially. Regardless of whatever words you want to use, understand, you were warned, you were told, you were shown, you don't have to do it. Well, here go the consequences for you doing it. And what we need to do is we just need to leave black women alone. We need to punish weaker black males. That's the only way it works. Every time she has an escape route, we need to put roadblocks, speed traps. We need to put deterrers in her way to prevent her from using that escape route or scapegoat as a tool. That's the only way it works. Once she realizes she's a mouse in a mouse trap or a maze and she has nowhere to go, she will behave because she understands she's not strong enough. She understands she's not strong enough. That's psychologically, that's emotionally, that's physically. She understands she's not strong enough. The problem is she's using weaker males who are equally as strong as the dominant males or stronger males. The only difference is the weaker males outnumber your stronger males. Simps are worse than Pookies and Ray Rays. Pookies and Ray Rays, even though these two personality types are the same, the nuance and the difference is A Pookie and a Ray Ray is usually an individual who's emotionally triggered. So they don't think 66 chess moves ahead. They think typically 3 chess moves ahead. The simp is the same. The difference is he's not emotional. He's defensive. So instead of him using his fist, instead of him robbing a bank, instead of him going out there to sell drugs, his type is to go to school, get some academia, become a lawyer, become a politician. Now he can do all the things he wanted to do now that he got the power. But us stronger men, us alpha men, or your beta sigmas, they move a different way. It's not necessarily an all or nothing for them, but they think projectively. They're thinking 10, 50 years down the line. And they're aggressive when it needs to be. They're patient at all times. They're disciplined at all times. And the problem with them, on average, is their plans do not give you an immediate gratification. Their plans come in after the work is done. After you done hunt the grasshopper and the ant. After that ant done worked all summer. Now that ant gets to enjoy its winter hibernation. Meanwhile, that grasshopper was bullshitting. Now when the winter comes, it's asking for help. That's the problem with the sigma or the alpha. Their stuff is usually long. It doesn't come quick. And when people are running around instant gratification and they outnumber you, then they're going to change the environment to fit their needs now, not later. So definitely play it back if you have to play it back. Share it to your friends and family so you can get an understanding of where we need to go and why we need to do what we need to do. It's not a hate. Nothing of whatever I say is hate. It's an acknowledgement. It's an analysis. This is what I'm seeing is wrong with the landscape. The women are still the problem. But the women are going to always be a problem because her energy is a selfish energy. It isn't a giving. It isn't a all-encompass. It isn't an energy that says the greater good over myself. The man's masculine energy is a greater good over myself energy source. So it doesn't think of itself first. It thinks of itself, how can it serve others? I want to end off on this, and I'll probably do another one. It's called subservient and servant leadership. Subservient and servant leadership. I'm going to end you off on those two questions, those two statements. They're actual questions. I just didn't say what is, and I didn't say how. I didn't give the traditional who, what, when, where, why, or how. But I want you to focus on those words. Subservient and servant leadership. Subservient and servant leadership. Warrior class, zoo, rise up. Warrior class, zoo, show up. Warrior class, zoo, speak up. Warrior class, zoo, smoke them out. Peace, blessings, and black love.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
Reality. Now, when we come to Washington, in this campaign...
Fair Use Act disclaimer. This site is for educational purposes only. Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowances made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, education, and research.